before we get...
No more hurdles, as far as I know. As far as I know, the RFP process and everything is moving forward. It was a very successful negotiation, a very successful agreement with a very significant partner of the United States.
Thank you.
How are you?
How are you doing?
Good.
Elaine Grossman from the National General Group.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you, ma'am. Could you elaborate on a couple aspects of verification, one being telemetry exchanges? Could you tell us a little bit more about how many and how that will be done? Mm-hmm. And secondly, verification of Russia's mobile missile, ICBM missiles. How will that be done, particularly with the monitoring at Butkinsk ended?
Yes.
How will you gain confidence then as to what they've got?
Right. Well, on mobiles, on telemetry, we will exchange. I don't know if you saw what Secretary Gates said at the presidential press conference at the White House on Friday, but we had telemetry as part of START. Over time, it's been clear it's not necessary for the verification regime of New START, but we have decided to do an exchange of up to 5 of launches, and it will be the work of the bilateral commission, which is part of the overall administration of the treaty, to make decisions on each side as to each side will make decisions as to what launches they're going to put into the telemetry exchange. So that's where we are on that. On mobiles, what was exactly the tenor of your question on mobiles?
Oh, how will the United States gain confidence in its verification regime of what mobile missiles the Russians have deployed?
Well, the good news is we have a very good history from the START regime as far as verification and confidence. And on this case, we don't have mobiles. The Russians do. We do not have the same kind of oversight over Votinsk as we did in the original START treaty, but at the same time, we believe that we have enough enhanced transparency and supplemental verification that will give us everything that we need, and so we're confident that we will be able to have what we need.
Could you elaborate a bit, though? Will the Russians be required to bring them into a certain area on certain dates?
There are a number of different data exchanges, exhibitions, and inspections that will be part of it, and national technical means will be part of it. Yes, sir.
Hi, Michael Bruno with Aviation Week. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Can you elaborate a little bit on conventional prompt global strike and how that falls under the treaty? I know at the White House press conference, I believe Admiral Mullen or Secretary Gates said it is not affected, but I'm curious if there's any language.
There is no effect for prompt global strike in the treaty. As a conventional arm, it's something that we're not specifically addressing in the treaty. Very much like missile defense, it doesn't have any constraints to it.
Thank you. We'll take one or two more.
Yes?
Just to follow up on Jill's question, I think what the expert was saying today, Brookings, was that the fact sheet that he saw said there were no limits on current or planned missile defense programs. And his concern was, what about the unplanned ones? And Lavrov on Friday was also going into this, and he had some comment from Moscow, which was to the effect that he was implying that the understanding is that missile defense is more or less at the current levels, and if there's a jump on one side or the other, then the other side can pull out of the START treaty. Now, is that your understanding as well?
Well, let me just say this. There are no constraints to missile defense in the START treaty. That's one piece of it. Each party, if you look at the START treaty itself, each party has the ability to include unilateral statements. Those statements now are still being negotiated, but each party has the ability to make a unilateral statement. For example, in the START treaty, both sides had statements. One had, certainly from our side, we had certain statements, and the Russians had certain statements, and in the end, we abrogated the ABM treaty, and they didn't get out of START, even though we have missile defenses. So Unilateral statements are what they are. They're a statement they're not agreed, obviously. One side says one thing, the other side says another. Those are still being negotiated, but they are a statement by one side that is not influenced by the other. And they are part of the treaty package. They are viewed by the Senate and the Duma. But in our case, there are no limits and no constraints on missile defense.
So you said those statements are still being negotiated.
Each side is going to make their own decision, not negotiated with each other, but each side will make their own decision as to whether they will have a unilateral statement and what they will say.
And so you expect them to have one on missile defense?
I don't know. They may. But once again, if you've passed as history, you have what happened in the START agreement. And, we had a statement, they had a statement. We ended up abrogating the ABM treaty, and their statement said that they may leave the START treaty if we had missile defenses, and they didn't.
Would that not undermine this treaty somewhat, though, if that's their understanding of it, that missile defense is somehow frozen at its current and planned levels?
Nothing that we have done or said leads anybody to believe that missile defense is either frozen or will be constrained. Jill.
Just one last one. It's pretty much what Elise was asking. Given this administration's focus on the zero option, a world without nuclear weapons, and given the fact that these are significant cuts, and there could be more, the question arises among some friends of the United States. They begin to question whether the United States is actually able or willing to defend them the way they expect to be defended, which would lead them to think that they need nuclear weapons too. So this is going to be an increasing argument.
Jill, I don't think anyone questions our resolve. I don't think anyone questions our resolve to our extended deterrence that we have extended to our NATO allies and some others. And I certainly don't think anyone thinks that the quality of our deterrent has degraded while the quantity has decreased. I think it's very important to remember that we have the strongest deterrent in the world. And President Obama has made it clear that he believes that's important. If you just look at his budget for the NNSA, which is about $5 billion, it's a $600 million increase to maintain the quality of the stockpile stewardship programs and our deterrent well into the future. So, I think that what's important now is that as we go around and talk to our allies, and as we make it clear what START is and isn't, as we talk about the NPR, as we talk about our commitment to a very strong non-proliferation treaty regime, that we put the facts out there and we do it, as we always try to do, with strong information. So we have a very strong deterrent. We've made significant investments in it. At the same time, the President has an ambition for a world without nuclear weapons that he is very eloquent and very persuasive about. But even he has said that this is something that is often in the future. It will take patience and persistence and may not happen in his lifetime. But he certainly has used a lot of his time and energy to make sure that this is clear, that this is what his ambition is. And but at the same time, while that is an ambition, the President has gone very far to make sure that we have the strongest, healthiest, and most effective nuclear deterrent in the world.
Tactical nuclear weapons? Would you like to see as the next step an agreement with Russia on tactical nuclear weapons? And is that in the realm of the possible?
Well, I think it's important that, as I've said before, I spent a few hours on Wall Street as a small child. When you're doing a negotiation, the most important thing, obviously, is to do one that creates the opportunity for the person you're negotiating with to want to do the next one. And that's why I think that this is a treaty that will serve the United States and the Russian people very well, because it makes significant reductions. It is transformational in the kinds of verification that we're doing and the kind of inspections. And it creates trust, but at the same time has verification. But it does it in a way where we have transformed our relationship. And while we're not BFFs on everything, we certainly have a very, very much more congruent way of doing business than we did in the recent past. And I think that will serve us all well. But that means, what do we do next? And we have a big agenda for next.
Is tactical
an agreement on tactical weapons part of that?
It certainly is the ambition of the President and Secretary Clinton to begin to have those conversations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You didn't hurt me.
You did a good job.